is the destruction of the culture of working class in Australia by companies like the one that is occupying this business. Shame, shame upon Rio Tinto. May the 1st is the traditional honouring of the worldwide campaign of organised labour to win shorter hours and the 8-hour day. And it was construction workers here in Melbourne that broke through the first place in the entire world to win those shorter hours.
The workers, united, will never be defeated.
We'll be back here every May the 1st now in future.
We're angry, we're loud, we're union and we're proud. Here we go, here we go.
Conservative forces see unions as a greater threat than ever before and are really trying to exterminate them.
We need a strong rank and file based militancy in our union. We also need to have a more political role, and what we've done is things like the East Timor campaign, International Women's Day, and we've got to do a whole range of other political issues. We want our members to not only be money militants, but if you like, intervene in society to make society fair and more just for working people.
Democratic.
When dealing with BHP, you'd always find that they were bastards, but they were Australian bastards. I think that to a large extent that has disappeared. I mean, I think they're all pretty well the same now. They're very conscious about their bottom line, which makes them quite ruthless, even though they may be seen as an Australian company.
Australian capital is like the little brother of US capital. You know, it potters around and it gets its boot in when it can, and it follows the lead of its big brother, and it engages in all kinds of nastiness. It's like the little kid in the bullying family, the terror of the neighbourhood.
The statistics show that from around about 1987, Australian standard of living has been in decline.
In comparison to the US or European or Japanese capital, it's a midget. But in comparison to the countries around it, and in relation to the damage that it does, it's still quite a power. You can look at the record of Australian mining companies. You can look at the record of Australian directors on such things as the Asian Development Bank or the World Bank. They have voted in all cases for the exact same pro-corporate, pro-business, anti-worker, anti-environment policies that their US big brother has. Our issue is not just let's confront US capital. It's like US capital is you know, it's because they're foreign. It's because it's capital.
When you get losses on the stock exchange of $11.5 billion in a single day, and you think about what that money could have been used for, how much more it could have been put into public education, or decreasing the waiting lists in our public hospitals, or creating better Aboriginal housing, for example.
There's a growing awareness about the role that the stock markets and more generally the financial markets play in determining the priorities of the world's economy. They really do act as siphons to draw funds away from what could be productive investment towards purely speculative purposes. You want to know why hospitals aren't getting built or childcare centres aren't getting built? Well, one of the main reasons is because the money which could have gone to that is actually being drawn into stock markets, bond markets, currency trading, hedge funds, derivative trading, all of this complex of the financial markets, all of this complex of speculation.
So there's more wealth in the world now than at any other point in history, and yet people feel more insecure, they're more concerned about their future, they are less satisfied with their jobs and they have less confidence in their governments.
40% of Australian adults own shares, which is a large percentage. But then, of all of those shares, 90% of them are owned by 10% of shareholders, and 60% of shares are owned by 1% of shareholders. And that pattern is replicated in each particular company. So companies are really dictatorships of the largest shareholders.
There's no democracy there. It's a bit of a boys' club.
And those largest shareholders form a complex around the board of directors and around the big banks, super funds and whatever, who own the largest blocks of things. They're the ones who really get to dictate how multinationals work.
In many cases, not by coincidence, directors of one company are also directors of other companies. They actually help their mates to get these directors' jobs around the place.
They come from the heart, they come from within. Like this and it, like that. That's back in his mouth. Hold up! From within! SWS right by my side. We're kicking up shit on the west side.
Yeah, mate, it's just full hectic here. I'm about to be hand grabbed by the TRG, the Tactical Rectum Group.
I think it's a total overreaction by the police. They're either testing out some of their riot control techniques and decided here's a crowd to test it on, or some of them in higher command went mad. There was no call at all for the level of violence, the level of arrests on the part of the police.
Get those animals off the horses!
Shell has been forced to admit that it supplied arms to the Nigerian armed forces. What world is it when oil companies become arms dealers as well?
Shell has destroyed the environment in the lowlands of Nigeria, has uprooted the indigenous people and killed off many of their activists.
We need to spare thought for indigenous peoples across the world being exploited by oil companies, and we need to spare thought for a different kind of future. A future which respects human rights, a future which creates meaningful employment, and a future which doesn't destroy planet Earth.
Corporations fund most major political parties' election campaigns. That's an incredibly powerful thing. If you're a politician who wants to be re-elected, and of course all politicians want to be re-elected, then you go to where the money is. Where does the money lie? It lies in the big corporations. And both the Labor and the Liberal Party rely very, very heavily on corporate donations. Actually, they get about the same as each other in corporate donations.
There's not much difference when you talk about workers' rights. Sure, certainly the Labor Party is a little bit softer than the Liberal Party on these issues, but their broad thrust is to look after capital. We just don't care about workers.
In movements of the past, people have placed a lot more faith in electoral politics. And I don't think people have that faith anymore.
But basically governments have increasingly withdrawn any controls or capacity to control multinationals, and they've done that as a result of fierce lobbying by those multinationals on a world stage.